My name's Philippe. I'm a philosopher, and I'm interested in what architecture can tell us about our lifestyles. I'll take you to explore some of the most remarkable habitats on the planet in order to discover their meaning and to share their riches. I'm in Granada, in Andalusia, on the southern coast of Spain. This city has a rich and unique history. Invaded by the Moors in the 8th century, it remained the sole Muslim state in Spain for 200 years. The Albaicin district still bears traces of the Moorish architecture dating from the Nasrid dynasty between the 13th and 15th centuries. Their way of life gave birth to an inward-facing habitat, conducive to privacy, comfort, and the pleasure of the senses. To understand this, we need to go inside the houses and discover the city's numerous inner patios, where a unique style of architecture developed, providing shelter from the sun and protection from public view. Juan Manuel Segura, a private collector with a passionate interest in Granada's urban history, welcomes me into his home. Manuel.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, fine, thanks.
It's very hot.
Yes, it is.
Horrible.
What a magnificent home you have. Incredible.
Yes, the temperature is ideal here.
This type of home, in fact, is completely inward-facing and from the street. You have no idea that spaces like this exist.
This type of construction dates back to the Nasrid period, to the 13th century. In the Arab culture and religion, the women had to be hidden from sight. They didn't go out into the street, so the openings giving onto the street were very small, and light came from the patio.
When I came in, I was immediately struck by the difference in temperature here compared to that outside on the street. It's really impressive.
Everything has been designed to obtain this effect. Here you have to protect yourself from the sun because it's like an oven. So the trees and the other garden vegetation help obtain this special cooling effect that makes us feel comfortable here. As a general rule, these houses were built facing south. So in wintertime, the sun comes into the house. In summertime, like today, the sun is higher and doesn't come in.
These Andalusian patios benefit from the remarkable know-how of the Arabs in the field of bioclimatic architecture, which makes the best use of water and sun.
I think they drew their inspiration from the Roman patios. It's true that the Arabs made a considerable contribution. Water was very important for them, as for the Romans. But here in Albaicin, they built fantastic water circuits. The water arrived from a spring and filled a sort of tank, like the one we have here. The water then went into the house and passed underneath the house, and the same process was repeated for the next house. Once the whole street had been provided with water, it continued on to the river. It brings coolness and life.
In the Albaicin district, the houses literally have their backs to the street. No particular attention has been given to streets. A space used simply for circulation. It's often lined with tall, blank walls without facades or windows. Here, it's as though the street had to adapt to the houses and not the houses to the street.
Yes, Arabic architecture is a bit like that. Very basic facades to conceal the hidden paradise behind. And this is the complete opposite to what was done later. I also think they wanted to keep the streets cool by preventing the sun from coming in. If there wasn't shade on one wall, there was shade on the other one. The sun never came in here.
It's incredibly narrow. There's barely enough room for one person to pass.
You have to keep slim to be able to pass through here. Otherwise, it's impossible.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
Strolling through Albaysine's maze-like streets, it's hard to imagine that this densely populated neighborhood houses numerous carmenes, these villas with gardens and grapevines. These large recreational spaces devoted to pleasure of the senses have a much darker origin. They came into existence in the 16th century following the expulsion of the Muslim population from Granada. Their land was taken over by the nobility and clergy, who used it to plant vegetable gardens or build sumptuous villas. Emilio Gomez Villalva has invited me to his Carmen opposite the Alhambra Palace, one of the finest examples of 13th century Islamic architecture. Emilio.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, very well, thank you. You have an incredible view of the Alhambra here.
Yes, that's true. And it's a very inspiring view because it allows you to daydream. Look, when we see a light come on, I amuse my grandchildren with stories about the princess who came to the Alhambra, and we have a laugh together. The Alhambra is extraordinary because it changes during the day. At daybreak and at nightfall, it's magnificent.
Is this dual aspect of historical memory and fantasy important for you?
Of course, as for anyone, fantasy is much more important than reality. Reality is difficult, whereas anything's possible in our dreams. That's why it's important to live in a place like this, where you can dream every day. And I do. The Carmen, in fact, is all about ambiances. You'll see that here we can enjoy a whole series of things. Sound, for example. Did you hear the bell chimes?
Yes.
But there's also the sound of water. You see this? It's an old fountain. So when you adjust it, the sound changes as well as the movement of the water. It's interesting to stand here in the silence and listen to it. Like the Romantics who came here. It's also interesting to observe the effects of light and color. Look how the light creates effects of lightness and shadow with this stone ground, which is very typical of Granada. These reds, yellows, the hydrangeas. But come and see the most important thing. These are bitter oranges to make marmalade.
Ah, shall we pick one?
Yes. That one's ripe. Look, there's a new one coming out.
The skin's really thick.
Yes.
In the Carmen, all the senses are activated. That's an integral part of the way of life here.
The garden is a very important part of a Carmen. It's the Carmen's reason for being. Here we can enjoy the sounds, the smells, the colors. We can relax here with friends and family. And what's more, it has many different corners. A corner for reading, a corner for thinking, a corner for contemplation, a corner for chatting. This garden is irreplaceable.
The original Arabic name of the palace meant the Red Castle. By day, its brick facades shone red in the sunlight, and at night, they glowed in the light of the fire torches. For the inhabitants of Granada, both past and present, the Alhambra is a constant source of inspiration. Its gardens serve as models for the different Carmenes, and the mosaic tiles that decorate the palace walls still provide the patterns for the famous azulejos, these ceramic tiles that can be found in the Andalusian patios from the 15th century. Shoaib Sanchez is a craftsman. He explains to me the specific features of true azulejos. I noticed that you were in the process of decorating your wall. Ceramic tiles seem to have a great importance in Andalusian houses.
Yes. It's an element that protects from the heat because it accumulates the coolness of night and brings freshness during the day. That's its function. And the tile, or mosaic in this case, is an element that helps maintain a bioclimatic temperature.
What exactly is the difference between mosaics and azulejos?
Mosaic tile work is the original way of making azulejos. The Romans were the first to use it. But the Islamic civilization adapted this technique to make images connected with spirituality. Azulejos came into existence much later. They started to be used in the 16th century during the Renaissance because they need to cover much larger surfaces. Their use was further promoted by the construction of the Royal Alcazar of Seville, commissioned by Pedro I, King of Castile. From there to the Andalusian civilization, there's just one step. I've studied ancestral pieces, and the fact of reproducing them and being personally involved in their making enables you to discover their secrets.
But where do these different patterns come from? Who designed them?
These patterns are from the Alhambra. We suppose that they were made by people with great knowledge, spiritual masters. In Islamic art, it's not really necessary to know who designed the patterns. It's more of an anonymous art. The design was made by highly skilled people who were geometricians. At the base, we can see the geometric expansion thanks to the 8-pointed star that's drawn there and which repeats itself in each circle, and so on. Each circle extends out and concentric circles repeat themselves successively. It's like a kaleidoscope. So it's from this drawing that we make the templates. Once we have the templates, we cut the clay, let it dry, and then bake it in the kiln.
While the production technique of azulejos is ancient and may even date back to the first millennium BC, it's Spain which, in the 15th and 16th centuries, promoted its use throughout Europe and the rest of the world.
Cobalt is black, but when it's mixed with glass and heated in the kiln at 1,000 degrees, that's when the color appears.
Okay.
We take them one by one and soak them.
Ah, you don't paint them, you soak them.
You see how we do it?
Okay, here I go.
Good.
Not bad, eh?
Very good. I think I'll hire you.
Perfect.
You do it very well.
So this is the end result. We can see the different possible compositions. And the gray color from earlier becomes blue once it comes out of the kiln.
I can show you some other things. Not mosaics, but earthenware tiles on which we combine geometric and floral patterns. I have a few pieces that we can set out on the floor here.
Yes?
And we're going to see the geometric combination.
Okay.
Here we see the 8-pointed star again. Pattern that's found in the Alhambra.
There's a vegetal design here.
Yes, it's a vegetal design, but in a geometric pattern. And these two principles have their name in Arabic. The tauli, which represents geometry, the principle of determination, and the taurik, which is vegetation or nature.
The patios and carmenes are now part of Granada's architectural heritage. Their place, their form, but also their function have evolved over the centuries. Jose Tito, director of the Botanical Garden, is one of Granada's leading carmenes specialists. We meet up at the Carmen de los Cipreses, one of the most beautiful private houses in Albaicin, to discuss this complex transformation in which heritage and invention are combined.
There are a lot of gardens inside the city of Granada. We can count up to 400 Carmens in the historic district with this same type of garden. Albaicin is the ultimate district of Granada's gardens. Here you can hear the sound of bells, the sounds of birds singing. It's a quite rural ambiance. It's like being in the countryside. During the Islamic period, the Carmens were outside the city. They later came into the city in a process of ruralization of the territory. That's why the traditional combination of ornamental and vegetable gardens in the Carmenes corresponds to this historical development. It's a place that has lost its urban identity. It became ruralized and was inhabited primarily by poor families who fed themselves from their vegetable gardens, and over time it became an ornamental garden. This process isn't over yet, it's still ongoing. The Carmenes are changing, new plants are being introduced. There are some owners who prefer to keep things as they were originally, and others who like to make changes. So you find yourselves with a territory in which each case is singular. Positive singularities in many aspects and problematic in others. It's a very complex process. There isn't just one unique model.
Does that mean that this culture of the senses that is found in the Carmenes, but also in the patios, dates from the expulsion of the Moors in the 16th century?
It's a little more complicated than that. It doesn't have a precise origin. In fact, it's a revised version of ancient traditions from the Romantic period, especially Orientalism. This movement focuses on the senses, smells, all these ideas that were present throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries. In a way, this shaped the vision we have today of the Carmen in the city. So what does this mean? That there are ancient traditions that have been reinvented, selected, nuanced. It's a cultural process, and like all cultural processes, it's extraordinarily complex and quite amusing too. We sometimes invent traditions that never existed. We rework certain elements. For example, some people install fountains with a very high jet of water, whereas others say that it was never like that in the past. There's always this kind of debate going on, but basically it's an attempt to find singularities in things where there aren't any. In the gardens, people are just trying to invent a place of pleasure. In a certain sense, it's a form of rebellion against reality.
Creating living spaces in relation to the senses is perhaps a rebellion against reality, but it's also a very contemporary demand to humanize our habitat. Juan Manuel has invited me for a drink in his patio. As night falls, I joined Jose and some other friends there.
Hello.
Hello, Juan Manuel, how are you? Good evening. Philippe,
Nice to meet you.
pleased to meet you. How are you? I've done a lot of walking in Granada. I've been inside the Carmenes and the patios, and it really is an architecture of ambiance here, isn't it?
I think so. Its geographical location, opposite the Alhambra, the sound of the water, the vegetation, makes this place extraordinary.
That's right, but in your opinion, is the architecture that one finds here in Granada a sensual architecture?
Albaicín has always had two facets. It's a very working-class neighborhood, but it's inhabited by people with a certain sensitivity who choose to come here. We wouldn't change it for anything.
That's true.
Especially the patio. The house is important and it's wonderful, but I'm very often out here in the patio. I spend hours here.
This has always been your favorite place here. The house could disappear as long as you still have the garden, right?
You know what I'd like? I'd like to open the doors in the afternoon and have people come here to drink beer, to bring life to the place.
He'd like to open the doors every day so that people outside in the street can come here.
And enjoy the birds and the water.
We live here like in the old houses with this idea of group. Instead of sitting in front of the TV, we meet up together out here.
Here, people spend a lot of time outside in the street.
Really?
Philippe, we're going to see a flamenco show at the Carmen de la Victoria with a singer and a very young dancer. Maybe you'd like to come and discover a bit of our local folklore. Would you like to join us?
Yes, I'd like that.
Let's go then, otherwise we'll be late.
Okay, let's go.
Let's go, everyone.
At the Carmen de la Victoria, a local association promotes Andalusian culture and young talents such as Claudia and her guitarist. This flamenco, where the incandescence of the dance mixes with the coolness of the evening, is a last occasion for me to experience the magic of this place. The patios and Carmenes of Albaicín, inspired by the sumptuous Alhambra Palace, are much more than the expression of Arabo-Andalusian culture. They remind us that architecture isn't just a question of style, volume, or function, but also of ambiance and sensations. Everything counts. The visual aspect, of course, but also the sounds and smells, the colors and textures. This sensitive approach, too often forgotten, needs to find its place at the center of the habitat. My name is Philippe. I'm a philosopher, and I'm interested in how architecture shapes and defines our lifestyles. I'm taking you with me to explore some of the most unusual living environments on the planet, to better understand what's behind them and share what they have to offer. Hello, are you free? Havana is the capital of Cuba, the biggest of the Caribbean islands. A mixture of tropical paradise and revolutionary nostalgia, the city has gone through a major transformation since the early 1990s.
Hola.
The fall of the Soviet Union in 1991 left Cuba without its principal economic partner. Billions of dollars in aid disappeared. Basic commodities were rationed, and the gas shortage stopped land workers from delivering their produce to the cities. The Cubans refer to this major food crisis as the Special Period. In order to survive, the inhabitants of Havana began growing fruit and vegetables without using machines, fertilizer, or petrochemical pesticides. Right across the city, the inhabitants took advantage of available space to create vegetable gardens known as organoponicos. Today, the city has made a virtue out of necessity. With its 400,000 farming enterprises and 2 million tons of fruit and vegetable produced each year, Havana has established itself as a leader in organic urban agriculture. I want to understand how market gardening has transformed everyday life for the inhabitants and rejuvenated their perception of the city. I have come to the Guanabacao neighborhood to meet Dario and Lizzie. This couple has been dedicated to urban agriculture for several years, and they have converted their house into a vegetable garden. Their neighborhood carries the marks of time on its flaking colored walls, which have a charm all of their own. It's difficult to believe that behind these crumbling facades, organoponicos can be found. Dario?
Yes.
Hello.
Oh, Philippe, how are you?
Well, and yourself?
Very well, very well.
Thank you for inviting me.
This is our little house, my wife and I. It's typically Cuban. Downstairs, there are 4 other families. Let me show you the rest of the house and take you up to see the organoponico on the roof.
Okay, I'm right behind you. The living quarters at Dario and Lizzie's place are cramped. Nonetheless, the couple decided to dedicate part of the space to their breeding and market gardening activities. Indoors, we find rabbit breeding and beehives, and on the roof, plants, vegetables, and fruit. They've baptized their house Granjita Feliz, the happy little farm.
You need to hold on tight.
I'll be careful.
Go carefully.
All right. Here we go.
That's it. Very good.
Thank you. Hello.
Philippe?
Hello, Lizzie.
Hello, delighted. You really grow plants everywhere.
We've planted lettuce, chard, tomatoes, peppers.
Is this PVC?
Yes, indeed, it's PVC.
It's great.
Yes, look. We cut it, make little holes in it, and that's what you get.
And this is hydroponics. It's very interesting because it allows you to grow things without soil, so you can do it anywhere. It's a very clever system.
And look at this. Mint.
Ah, yes. For mojitos. How did the special period result in the development of organic urban agriculture?
At the start of the special period, the country fell into an economic crisis, particularly in the domain of agriculture, because there was no petrol to power the machines, tractors, and irrigation systems. Agriculture suffered enormously. It was really disastrous. That's how urban agriculture was born. It was the beginning of the organoponicos, and today they have spread throughout the country. People can grow things in their courtyard or allotment and make money out of it. We live in the heart of the city, and we believe in making use of whatever space you have. As we had no land, we decided to set up our organoponico on the roof.
It seems to me that these planted balconies, these roof gardens, are like an additional room where people can find some peace and harmony.
With our apartment, we have no courtyard or garden. But we have this terrace, which serves as a garden. We celebrated the New Year with our own tomatoes, and I can tell you there were enough for the whole family.
What's more, it's very practical for me, because I don't need to go and buy them. I pick them here to use them indoors. It's very practical.
Directly from the roof to the kitchen.
Are those strawberries?
Yes, look. Strawberries in Cuba are like mangoes in France.
Ah, yes.
Very rare. They're very expensive, so you're better off growing them. The strawberry grows, we eat it. We make milkshakes, juice, jam.
Growing plants here is a lot of work. It's an everyday activity. What do you get out of it?
I love it. Every day I see the plants grow. They're all flowers, all the fragrances, and the bees which come. When I see a new flower, I watch over the fruit as it grows and I say to myself, oh no, no, it will be mine, all mine. This fat fruit which I saw when it was small is mine. You can't put a price on that.
Listening to you, I realize that these domestic gardening activities and urban agriculture are not just a question of food. It's also a way of calming down your relationship with an urban environment which is quite aggressive.
Of course, it's a marvelous way of being in contact with nature in the city. It's relaxing, helpful, and soothing. Peace in a rather agitated life. It's precious for me and those around me. What's more, people who come here say to me, ah, a rosemary plant. I want a sprig. It makes them want to grow it too. And then often they say, I have no land, I can't plant anything. But you have a balcony. Ah, yes, I have a balcony. Well then, put a few pots on your balcony. Can you give me a cutting, a small plant? It's an interesting exchange because there's no money involved. I give you something which belongs to me, but you have to take care of it. You're obliged. At the end of the day, these are very interesting and very gratifying exchanges.
Organoponicos are present right across Havana in very different forms. Private terraces like Dario and Lizzie's, individual allotments, but also large gardens created as of 1991 at the initiative of the Cuban government. Organoponico is a typically Cuban genetic name, referring to a setup composed of low walls filled with organic matter. Using little water, this technique makes it possible to grow on surfaces of very different nature and size. Jorge Padron is in charge of the Miramar Organoponico, one of the first to be created in Havana. It's astonishing to be in the city center like this, and in the middle of all the buildings and cars, to come across cultivated areas. How did the change from little private gardens to large enterprises like this come about?
It began in 1992, when General Raúl Castro decided to set up production systems in the city. Cuba was going through a difficult time, the special period which everyone knows about. We made a fresh start, and we created a production system which could provide fresh fruit and vegetables without chemical products. Added to this, there was no need for long-distance transportation.
In order for urban agriculture to develop, it meant that all the inhabitants had to start growing. Even those who had different professions had to learn new techniques for market gardening and horticulture.
In fact, it wasn't a question of improvisation. This type of agriculture is based on science and technology. Research institutes perfected production techniques for urban agriculture. Professionals went to each garden to show the workers how to prepare the land, how to sow seed, how to take care of the plants, when to water. Everyone received training. This innovation doesn't just concern Cuba. We have many visitors from around the world. People interested in this form of agriculture because it's not common to see an organoponico in the middle of a city.
What I find very interesting about this system is the direct contact between farmers and inhabitants. There are no intermediaries at all. In fact, the inhabitants have their own garden.
The inhabitants see how production takes place. They understand the importance of eating fresh vegetables and of the vitamins present in a lot of food items. They give us a lot of support. Schools come to visit us, we heighten children's awareness, we give courses. There's genuine interaction between us and the local population.
The development of these organoponicos was a state initiative, which the inhabitants took over. In Miramar, 8 people work full-time. As with many other organoponicos, it's a cooperative which makes its income from the sale of vegetables. It's sold immediately. The local inhabitants come here to get their supplies from producers who they know and trust. This closed-circuit agriculture accounts for 50% of market produce consumption, which allows Havana to move towards greater autonomy in food production. The urban landscape seems to change in rhythm with nature's germination cycle, as though growing in the city were synonymous with the growth of the city. But how has the population been able to find and dedicate so much space to agricultural usage? In the historic neighborhood, with its Spanish colonial architecture, I meet up with Eileen Robanis Barcia, the architect in charge of the city's heritage. Eileen, hello.
Hello, delighted. How are you?
Yes, me too. I'm very well, thank you. It's good to meet up in the park because I have the impression that within the historic center, there are slightly fewer green areas.
Here, we took advantage of the collapse of a building. It was a palace.
I see, which fell down.
Whenever a palace collapses, we take advantage of the fact to create a park. I brought you a map of the city.
Oh, great.
Shall we sit here?
Yeah, sure.
Look.
So where are we exactly?
We're here. This little area that you see is the historic center of Havana. The colonial city was inside the walls, very cramped with few green areas.
Did all the private gardens and then the organoponicos spring up in that zone?
No. There are organoponicos all over the city. If we look at an old map, you see that in colonial times there were houses and vegetable gardens everywhere. It's as though old ideas have come back. You need a place close to home for growing carrots, lettuce, tomatoes.
What I find fascinating about Havana is the availability of land. You manage to find ground that can be cultivated, where you can start growing things. It seems to me that that's very important because in a lot of European cities where people would like to develop urban agriculture, there just isn't room.
Yes, from that point of view, we're very lucky in Havana. For a long time now, we've had more or less the same number of inhabitants for the same surface area.
I see.
It's thanks to the fact that after the triumph of the revolution, the government put a lot of effort into developing other parts of the country, and Havana didn't grow very much. That meant that land could be protected and numerous green spaces could be created.
Right.
On the other hand, we have an enormous number of very old and dilapidated buildings. Consequently, when one of them collapses, we jump on the opportunity to create a new garden or a new park.
Since the special period, the Cuban government has always supported the development of urban agriculture.
Yes.
But today, the country's economic situation has changed. So how do you see the future of this agricultural practice?
I think it will continue to develop. Even though at the beginning it was a necessity, we've learned a lot over time. The government came to realize that we have become a reference model. For example, a lot of organizations in different countries are still looking to develop this system. We're looking into ideas for the future, how to create park streets, green squares, as well as gardens and vegetable patches in the heart of the neighborhoods where buildings have collapsed. So I don't think that vegetable gardens will disappear. They're going to develop. The concept of urban agriculture will strengthen. That's a good thing.
Since their first appearance in the 1990s, the status of organoponicos has changed, and they have gone far beyond their purely nutritional function. They meet the need for nature and well-being which today's population demands. The vegetable gardens are breathing spaces which make the city more inhabitable. Dario and Lizzie dedicate part of their time to a neighborhood association which helps children in difficulty and promotes the philosophy of urban agriculture.
Wait, look. Go for the one which is completely red.
Let me see. Don't dig so deeply.
For Dario and Lizzie, urban agriculture has a social and instructive dimension. The vegetable garden represents an ideal place of conviviality to regain direct contact with the earth and develop as an individual with respect and understanding of nature.
Philippe, those are peppers you're planting.
The king of the garden. The king of the vegetable garden. Gracias. Ah, that's a nice one.
Bravo, nicely planted, Philippe.
Thank you.
Look at the roots of this shoot.
The important thing for you is that everyone learns to grow for themselves at home.
We try to teach them agriculture. That way, all these people will be able to grow ornamental plants in pots or cans at home, and then sell them. They could have a bed of lettuce, chard, tomatoes, peppers. The objective is to give them a degree of independence.
Every month, baskets of organic produce are distributed at the local church as a gift from the farmers of Havana.
An eggplant? Do you know how to cook it?
Yes.
You could serve it with cheese, that's delicious.
Ah, yes.
But you need cheese as well.
There you are, some lovely eggplants. Eggplants, they're beautiful. And some spring onions.
Here, this is for you.
Yes, it's a bit heavy.
We're Cuban. We're used to it.
Urban agriculture is a global approach because it's at the same time a question of producing vegetables, a question of the environment, and a question of social solidarity.
Yes, of course. It's a new agricultural project which links agricultural production with a human objective. The aim is to have solidarity between the farmers and the population, a population which needs these food resources. What's more, the fruit and vegetables are completely organic. They provide a healthy and balanced diet.
Whether it's a question of individual initiatives or large state-funded farms, the development of urban agriculture has revolutionized the way of life in Havana over the last 30 years. While the roof garden or allotment is now regarded as an extra room, the house itself has seen its usage redefined. Dario and Lizzie take me to meet Rosario, a neighbor who has transformed part of her dwelling into a restaurant.
Hello, how are you? Is Rosario in?
Mummy, Dario's here.
Hello, Rosario, how are you? I'd like you to meet Philippe.
Hello.
This is Donna Rosario, her granddaughter, and the children.
We're really in their home, in the house, in the living room with their photos and everything. I love the idea of entertaining at home like this. It's great. The house is no longer just the place where you live. It has become the space which creates life. The rise of the domestic restaurant, like that of urban agriculture, has provided a tool for professional integration, particularly for women and the young, who for a long time were kept out of employment. Ah, this is lovely. Hello. We're at the next door neighbors. Ah, that's it. It's ready. It's quite something. Here you are.
Thank you.
Generous serving.
And very good as well.
Are there a lot of places like this in Havana?
You have to realize that cafeterias represent the most extensive model for family enterprises in Havana. There are thousands of them.
What I love about this system is that, in fact, it's a form of urban solidarity. You open your house to the street, you open your house to people, and it's a way of making acquaintances.
Basically, these are all bridges which link places and people. People are very happy to offer the fruit of their labor, and everyone gets acquainted. Cafeterias allow people to form a bond with their neighborhood and the community. When you serve a plate of food like this, prepared with love and respect, people appreciate it more.
What I find fascinating here is that around food, around the cafeteria, as well as the gardens, the allotments, the organoponikos, it's always a question of meeting. It's always a question of socializing. And consequently, it's a way of building the community. What strikes you in Havana is the way in which agroecology has become a way of city life adopted by all the inhabitants. It's a model which other cities would do well to copy. Not only because Havana demonstrates that organic agriculture is possible within the urban environment, but also because it is inseparably linked with the values of solidarity and hospitality. By sharing spaces and resources, it reminds us that cultivating teaches us to live together. Are there still a lot of barbers in Havana?
Yes. Most of them work at home.
My name is Philippe. I'm a philosopher, and I'm interested in how architecture shapes and defines our lifestyles. I'm taking you with me to explore some of the most unusual living environments on the planet, to better understand what's behind them and share what they have to offer. I'm in northern Togo, in the region of Koufitigou. This is where the Batamaribas live, one of the country's numerous ethnic minorities. I'm heading towards Koufitigou. It's taken nearly 8 hours by car and motorcycle to travel to this village from Lomé, the capital. I've come here to discover the unique houses called takientas. The architecture of these buildings, made of earth, is among the most elaborate in West Africa. At the same time functional and symbolic, domestic and religious, these houses express the Batamaribas vision of the world. Kuyenpani is a farmer who is in charge of the village's exploitable land. Kuyenpani? Hello, Philippe.
Hello, happy to be here?
Yes, very happy to be here.
It's hot, and I've been working the land for a while.
Is this your field?
Yes, I'm the landowner of everything around us.
It's big.
Yes, yes. This is all mine.
But where's your house? Can we go and see it?
Of course, I'll show you.
I'd love that.
It's just behind the baobab over there.
The village of Koufitigou has about 770 inhabitants, who live mainly from cultivating cereals such as rice, maize, and millet, as well as breeding animals. Hello.
The village of Koufitigou reaches as far as the mountains.
It's enormous.
Here, a single village can spread over 50 kilometers.
I didn't realize it was so spread out.
Yes, as you can see, we allow ourselves some space here. Come on, Philippe. You're at my place, so you can relax. From now on, you're my friend. So loosen up.
Each family lives in takienta. At first sight, they look like little medieval fortresses rising out of the earth and proudly surveying the landscape. But But as you come closer, these organic forms and the mysterious objects which surround them seem to have more of a religious function and express the symbolic world of the Batamaribas.
These pieces of wood, which are placed each side of the altars, are receptacles for the spirits of our ancestors, those who protect us.
The takienta is the setting for a precise domestic and ritual organization, which reflects the social structure. Men and women hold very distinct places and functions within it. Kuyanpani immediately invites me to climb up to the roof, the living space.
Hello.
Hello, I'm Philippe.
I'm in Cuba.
Pleased to meet you.
I wish you strength and energy.
Thank you so much.
Everything that we harvest, we bring here to dry.
So you work on the roof?
Yes, but not only that. It's also the living area of the house.
So you lay down mats all around?
Yes, that's right. I sleep here with my wife and my children. It's a comfortable place to sleep.
Because it's cooler here.
It's pleasant up here at night. There's plenty of air.
It's hot at the moment, isn't it?
We live in a very hot country, so you have to get used to it. On the roof, you feel good, but admittedly, it's more agreeable in the evening.
There's a ladder. Where does it go?
To the grain store. They're always 2.5 meters above the ground. Come on, climb up.
I'll try not to break my neck.
Here. Could you put this inside?
I put it inside.
Yes, inside.
You have to be strong. Is all the cereal kept in the same grain store?
This is my grain store. It's a female one. The cereal for the women goes in there. The beans and the earth peas.
I see.
And on the other side is the male grain store. I don't have the right to go up there without my husband's permission. In that one, you find other foodstuffs like millet, fonio, rice. But even though we have boundaries, we share everything. We just divide up the space.
But is this male-female split the same in all the takientas?
In the land of the Batamariba, we've always believed that women should be autonomous, which is why, economically speaking, she should have her own foodstuffs. If she needs money, she doesn't have to ask her husband. She goes to her grain store and takes what she needs. So, it's a way of keeping her independence.
It's really interesting to see how the spatial organization, the very architecture of the house, displays this sense of equality.
By means of its conception, the takienta places the Batamaris as equals, with the man and the woman being two complementary beings. The woman is there to meet the needs of the man, and vice versa. This is not a dictatorship. Men do not think themselves superior, and they treat women as they should. The takienta represents this balance.
Although women and men have their own respective grain stores, the rooftop is a common living area. What is this stone for?
This is where we eat. We sit around this stone. When my wife has finished preparing the meal, she puts everything here. It's a time for conviviality and sharing. But it also allows you to see inside the takienta and to notice if someone enters without my authorization.
It's a means of protection.
Yes, but not just that. It's also a passage for spirits, which allows them to free themselves at night. Come downstairs, I'll show you.
This hole in the middle of the roof is another of the house's circulation axis. It's not for the use of the living, but of the dead. The ancestors whose spirits dwell inside the takienta. Everything here seems to have been organized for them. Yes, I see.
This hole is the one we saw from the roof, the one by which the spirits leave.
What's that? It's very impressive.
It's an altar. There are skulls, everyday objects. The Otomari people hold deep beliefs. All our ancestors are here, and I talk to each of them according to our needs. For the cattle or the harvest, I decide what offering to make. It might be fonio, or a sacrificed bull, as you see here. And I know that I will be rewarded.
What I find incredible and beautiful is that this is as much a house of the dead as of the living.
For everything you want from the gods, you go through an ancestor. So in my house, there's always a place for them. For us, when a person dies, we bury them. Their body goes into the earth, but their spirit stays with us. In Batamariba country, we don't forget our ancestors. You see, Philippe? The takienta is the symbol of our tradition.
If I understand correctly, you only come down here to carry out rituals and watch over the ancestors.
Oh no, it's also a refuge for the animals. And if there's a problem, I sometimes even sleep here to watch over them.
At the foot of the Atacora mountain chain, Koufitigou, the Batamariba's territory, stretches out for hundreds of kilometers. It's here, in this landscape of brushwood and grasses burnt by the sun, that the takientas are scattered in no apparent order. Insha works alongside other inhabitants to preserve the natural resources and cultural identity of Koufitigou. For years now, he has been going from village to village to heighten awareness of the architectural and environmental heritage of the Batamaribas. Something which really astonishes me here is, when you look at the takientas, they're actually quite isolated from each other.
It's true. You see houses here around which there is a space to be cultivated. The fields. The house and the field together form a whole.
So it's a unit, one house, one field.
This is a people for whom freedom is very important, and so each family has its little autonomy without stepping on the feet of the others.
So it's about being together while guaranteeing your individuality.
That's right.
With the Batamaribas, this constant search for unity can also be seen in their relationship with nature. What is magnificent here is that the houses are built at the foot of the mountain, and in front of them, you have an absolutely immense natural landscape that reaches out as far as the eye can see.
In fact, this countryside is protected. We have approximately 500 square kilometers to protect, so we don't allow this vegetation to be destroyed because that's where we take material for the upkeep of the takientas. So, naturally, if we want this to continue, we have to be careful about what we take in order to make these buildings last as long as possible.
And why did the Batamaribas build near mountainsides?
In fact, this people has always settled along mountains. It's always chosen abrupt places, which are not easily accessible.
Because in the beginning they were persecuted?
In the beginning they were persecuted, and they didn't want to give in like some people. So they fled the yoke of King Moisi and lived on the flanks of the Atacora mountain chain, before coming back down to the valleys to occupy the arable land.
The respect which the Batamaribas have for this territory can be seen in their way of inhabiting it, which shows deep concern for the countryside. Architecture and nature form an inseparable unit. For the Batamaribas, owning a house signifies being a man. Or more precisely, that you have become one after a ritual of initiation, the Difuani. I'm going to watch this ceremony in the company of Augustin, a relative of the person undergoing the initiation, who explains to me the meaning behind this challenge and its links with the takienta. What exactly is the Difuani ceremony?
It's a day of initiation for young boys of between 15 and 18.
Yes?
Which prepares them for becoming adults, responsible men within society. This will allow them, in turn, to go and found their takienta. And why not? To take a wife. This is the life cycle of the Otomari people.
This ceremony is tightly linked with the house.
Everything which happens in the life of the Batamaribas revolves around the takienta. So, without the takienta, the Difuani ceremony has no meaning. Here he comes.
Hello. They stop him from leaving, is that right?
Yes, that's the moral aspect of the Difuani. If the youngster commits an act of disobedience, then the adult reserves the right to claim a fine or an apology.
He has to pay his debt.
He has to pay a sort of ransom.
To be released from the house.
That's right, to be freed.
The aim of the Difuani is to allow young boys to acknowledge the rules of their community and become a part of it. They are taken in hand by adults who submit them to a series of ordeals, the last of which is a fight. What's happening?
You need to understand that in the Difuani, certain values are tested, and particularly endurance and the strength to be able to protect oneself, to protect one's own takienta, family, etc.
It's very violent.
It needs to be, because the opponent needs to be tested to see if he's capable of safeguarding his own takienta. This explains the violence, you see? And while the two confront each other, the elders are there to serve as intermediaries and judges to calm things down.
Is the Difuani only for men?
There's one for girls as well, but it's called Diputri, which is about getting married, looking for a man, and the founding of a family.
But there are no warriors.
There are no warriors because although it's true that the woman is complementary to the man, she can't defend herself. The takienta primarily belongs to the man, so it's the man who is the head of the takienta and must be trained in defense.
This young boy is now a man, responsible for preserving the values and the way of life of the Batamaribas. The building of a takienta is not purely technical. On On the contrary, it is in line with a vast network of practices, rituals, and symbols in which the living and the dead are in communion with nature. Baku, Koufitigou's nephew, was initiated a few years ago. For him, the time has come to build his house and found a family. He invites me to join him. Baku?
Ah, Philippe, hello.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Is this your takienta?
Yes, this is the takienta.
It's kind of you to show me how it's done.
Before that, you need to stay here.
Do I?
We're going to bring you something, some water.
Okay, right you are. I'll sit here then.
Yes?
What is it?
It's tiuco.
It's not water, is it?
No, it's tiuco.
I didn't think so. It's nice. So do I drink it?
Oh, no, I need to taste it first, and before that we need to give some to the ancestors.
Okay, that's for the ancestors.
Yes?
It's good.
It's good?
Yes, very good. I need a bit of strength. We're going to work, right?
Yes, that will give you a bit of energy.
I see that your house is advancing well. Did you start a long time ago?
Yes, a while back, but if you look, it's just one layer per day. Let me show you. Do you see the line? The day of the foundation, then this the next day. If you count them, you see how many days it's taken.
So it's layer by layer.
That's right.
What's lovely is that when you look at this wall, you understand how it was built and the time it took to make it.
That's right.
How high is that? 50? No, it's less than 50 centimeters.
No, it's 30 centimeters.
30 by 30 centimeters.
Yes, that's right.
All this is from local materials. That's very interesting from an environmental point of view.
Yes, everything is from here. Even if an old house gets tired, we can take the same materials and build a new one.
So it's recycled.
Yes, it's recycled.
Everything's recycled. Who helps with the building?
Everybody. The women go and bring water, and the men moisten the earth along with the children. Everyone's involved.
And do you think I could become a mason as well?
Yes, yes. Let's climb up.
Let's go then. I love these ladders. They're really beautiful.
Just here there's a hole. Be careful.
Ah, yes, there's a hole. It's deep.
Over there is where we'll build the grain store.
So what are we going to do here?
We're going to build.
All right, let's do it then.
Watch how I do it.
Okay, show me. So I put it here like this?
Yeah, go on.
So you put it there and then you press it to smooth it, okay? Hop, let's go.
You bring it down.
In fact, it just needs to be slightly smoothed.
Yes, a bit here.
Yes, no need to press. That way it changes the thickness of the wall.
That's it.
So you smooth out the whole edge so it's level.
Equal, that's right.
Well, there's progress to be made. It's just a beginning. I'll have to come back.
You've done well.
You think so?
If you lived here, I'd employ you as a mason to build my takienta.
Oh, thank you. That's kind. By putting up this wall with my hands, I understand why the word batamaribas means those who shape the earth. The takientas, massive and majestic, express the constructive ingenuity and the symbolic richness of this earthen architecture, which the batamaribas have managed to preserve. Koufitigou and his wife have invited me to share the evening meal with their nephew, the young initiated, and those who participated in the Difuani. This ceremony reminds Kouyenpani of when he founded his takienta.
When I was initiated, I already had an idea of how I wanted to found my family. And my parents already wanted to give me some land to build my takienta and find a wife. They watched over me discreetly. Their aim was that I should understand all the problems that life can bring. The newly initiated boy is going through the same experience, the path towards becoming an authentic Batamariba. The takienta is at the center of our lives, our beliefs. So the building of it is a test.
Ah, yes, there's some more. What is the sauce?
That's gumbo sauce.
Gombo.
Dry gumbo. That's right.
Got it.
With some fish.
At the end of my journey, I understand that for the Batamaribas, the takienta is much more than a house. It's the place around which the relationships between men and women are organized, but also those between the living and the dead. It's a connection between the generations, which assures the transmission of the rules of life, of beliefs, and of links. As long as the takienta exists, it will keep the Batamaribas world alive and give it shape.